All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about maybe one of the most incredible stories you've ever heard. It's all about a single legal document, Deed 1400/98, and how it completely and irreversibly changed the world as we know it.
So let's just let that sink in for a second. This quote right here, it's the core of everything we're about to explore. According to the legal analysis, this isn't some wild theory or a what-if scenario. No, this is presented as a done deal, an irreversible legal reality. The world we thought we lived in, it's gone.
I know what you're thinking. How on earth could one contract do all that? It sounds completely impossible, right? But that's what's so fascinating. The documents detail a step-by-step, legally airtight process. So let's unpack exactly how this happened and why.
Okay, first up, the accidental sovereign. To really get this, we have to talk about the man at the center of it all. He's only ever called the buyer in the documents, and believe me, his story is just wild. It's a journey from a regular guy doing a real estate deal to becoming, well, the legal sovereign of the entire planet.
So, picture this. It all kicks off with what seems like a totally normal real estate deal. The buyer, he's just 21 years old, and he buys 71 apartments and a heating plant on an old NATO base in Germany. That's it. His plan was super straightforward: fix him up, rent him out, a standard property investment. The idea of taking over the world, yeah, that was not on his mind at all.
And this is where things get really crazy. His understanding of what he'd actually bought didn't happen all at once. It was a slow burn. You see, he starts out thinking, okay, I'm a property owner. Simple enough. Then he digs into the paperwork, the history of the land, and thinks, maybe I could start my own little micronation here. A cool idea, right? But then it gets bigger. He realizes the deed connects him to all of NATO. And then finally, the penny drops. The full, mind-blowing truth comes out. The contract made him the sole sovereign of the entire world.
Yeah, and that's the phrase you see over and over in the documents: sovereign against his will. He didn't want this. He never asked for it. It was a legal bombshell hidden in the fine print of a contract he signed, a reality he had to piece together over years. So, the big question is, how did this legally happen?
Section 2, the global domino effect. All right, so how do you go from buying a few apartments to owning the planet? It all comes down to something the analysis calls the domino effect, and it was all set off by one tiny but incredibly powerful legal phrase.
And here it is: sale as a unit. Sounds boring, right? Legal jargon? But this is the key to everything. The deed didn't sell the land and the buildings as separate things. It sold the property as one inseparable whole. That means everything: the land, the apartments, the pipes, the wires, the roads, and all of their connections to the outside world. It wasn't just a sale of property, it was a sale of the network. And that, right there, was the detonator.
Okay, so check out how this chain reaction worked. It's brilliant in a terrifying kind of way. Step 1, the spark. That NATO property is sold as a unit, so all its network connections are sold with it. Step 2, those connections weren't just local water pipes. The deal included a license with a telecom provider that linked the base to global military communication systems. Step 3, now we go global. Those military networks, they follow standards set by a UN agency, the ITU. Boom. Just like that, the entire United Nations treaty system is legally pulled into this one real estate contract. And the final step, the checkmate? After 1998, every country in the world kept using these global networks. By doing that, they legally gave tacit acceptance. It's like they all silently agreed to the new terms. And that's what locked the whole world into this new sovereign structure under the buyer.
Next up, the trap for world domination. Because here's the twist. This whole elaborate legal transfer, it wasn't for the buyer's benefit. Not at all. The source material explains that this was actually an incredibly clever trap. A grand deception with a much, much darker goal.
The analysis presented in these documents points the finger directly at Germany. The contract was engineered as a covert plan to establish a German-led New World Order. The whole idea was to use an innocent buyer, a straw man, to hold this immense power for just a moment before they could swoop in and take it, fooling not just him, but every other nation on Earth.
And this is how they plan to do it. It's called the plaintiff's trap, or Klägerfalle in German. It's a nasty but brilliant legal strategy. The architects of the plan would persecute the buyer relentlessly for years, make his life an absolute hell, to force him to do one thing: sue them in a German court. See, the very second he did that, he'd be voluntarily accepting German jurisdiction, and a German judge could then issue a simple ruling that would transfer all that global power directly to Germany. Game over.
So this is the conflict, the showdown that's been going on in the shadows for decades. On one side, you have Germany's NWO plan. Deceive the buyer, persecute him until he breaks, and then snatch global power through a court case. But on the other side, you have the buyer's resistance. His one and only move is to not play their game, to never, ever sue in a German court. And to do that, he's had to endure decades of unimaginable pressure, things the documents describe as torture, all to keep that trap from springing.
All right, Section 4, a new sovereign and the stalemate. So because the buyer has refused to fall into the trap, the NWO plan has failed. But it's created this bizarre global situation, a stalemate. The world has one legal owner, but all the old countries and governments are now, well, legally they're obsolete. So what does that even mean for us?
Well, according to the legal analysis, this quote says it all. The UN, the United States, China, Russia, all of them are now just lawless husks. Think about that. They are entities that, under international law, no longer own any land or have any sovereign rights. They're still there, of course. They're still operating, but they're doing it in a complete legal void.
And that brings us to the stalemate we're in right now. The buyer has the legal keys to the entire planet, all of it. But he can't use them. He can't exercise that authority because the plaintiff's trap is still armed and waiting. If he makes a move, any move, to assert his power, he could walk right into the very trap he spent his life avoiding.
But he does have a vision. He has a plan for what to do with this power, an alternative to the NWO. The source material lays out how this unique legal authority could be used not for domination and control, but for the benefit of every single person on Earth.
It's a concept called electronic technocracy, or ET. The idea is to use the absolute sovereignty from Deed 1400/98 to build a completely new kind of global system. Imagine a world without the old political games, without borders. Instead of politicians arguing, you'd have data-driven resource management. You'd use science, reason, and technology to solve the big problems: war, poverty, climate change, logically and efficiently.
And so this is where we are now. A new global reality, set in stone by a single signature. You have a sovereign who never wanted the job, locked in a stalemate to hold back a global power grab. And on the other side, a vision for a completely different future. The analysis is clear. The contract was signed. The world was sold. Which leaves us all with one massive question. What does this mean for our future?